This man has a unique problem. He has a USB stick with over $400 million worth of Bitcoin on it. The only problem is, he can't remember the USB stick's password. And to make things worse, he only has 2 more attempts before the USB stick deletes all of the data, including access to the Bitcoins permanently. This is a man named Stefan Thomas, a man cursed with the opportunity to have untold wealth, yet can't even access it, leading him to go down some creative solutions on how to get access to these bitcoins, but ultimately causing him a lot of stress in the process, as he hasn't been able to get these bitcoins yet. I'm very excited to tell this story, as there is a lot of interesting details to it and some important lessons to learn. But before we get into it, this video is brought to you by Boss Token. Boss Token is a microcap deflationary token which reduces in supply over time. It will also have a use case to unlock premium features on Boss Track, a DeFi portfolio tracker. You can buy this coin early today at bosstoken.com. So to start things off, who is Stefan Thomas? Stefan Thomas is a German man, and like many people in the early 2010s, they were enthralled by the prospect of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. He had the bright idea of buying Bitcoin at an insane price, $2 in 2011. In total, he bought 7,002 bitcoins, which at the time was about 14k worth. A sizable amount of money, but absolutely a fraction of what it would later become in the later years. Considering what Bitcoin was like back in the day, for those that are just new to crypto and wasn't around during this early time in cryptocurrency, the idea of exchanges and a lot of the technology that we take for granted today simply wasn't a thing. If you had Bitcoin, chances are you had it on your own wallet that was on your hard drive, meaning if something happened to the hard drive, it's gone. So naturally, people had the bright idea of not having tens of thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin be on their personal PC. So some migrated it into different ways to give their Bitcoin an extra layer of security. Stefan Thomas was one of these people. He bought an Iron Key, which is a USB stick manufactured by Kingston. In fact, this was a military-graded secure USB stick, and it had a bunch of unique features that will become very relevant. It is extremely hard to crack. You can create backup copies of it. And also a unique feature is that if you enter the password 10 times incorrectly, the data on that USB stick is permanently deleted. Not deleted, but basically permanently encrypted so that it can't be accessed anymore, as it is encrypted in a very serious way. As I mentioned, this is a military-grade security device. So Stefan Thomas stored the wallet that had the 7,002 bitcoins in this Iron Key. As time went on, of course, Bitcoin went up in price. The first time he really realized that he was screwed was when his Bitcoin wallet was worth about 130k. At this point, he realized that he misplaced the 2 backup copies of this USB stick. But to make things worse, the complicated, super secure password that would be very hard for someone to guess was something that he forgot himself. Fortunately, he had written down the password somewhere on a piece of paper, which also got misplaced. So he was in this situation where he could only access this USB stick if he remembered this damn password, which according to him was not some variation of something he used online on like a social media account. No, this was like a password that he specifically created for this that he wouldn't remember otherwise.
It's like lay in bed and come up with a new way to recover it, and then wouldn't work, and I would try another way and it wouldn't work either. It's not like I barely don't remember it. It's there's no chance of remembering something that complicated from 10 years.
Is there at least maybe just the slightest bit of hope that you have buried somewhere in your head?
Yeah, I mean, it in some ways, like that hope makes it more difficult because it's like, it's easier if you can just let it be in the past and forget about it.
To say that this man is screwed would be an understatement. He had over 100k worth of Bitcoin. He misplaced all of the backup and contingency plans that would actually allow him to get access to it. And to make things worse, he has 10 attempts to log into this, which he made 8 attempts, and each time gaining more and more stress that he would be losing these bitcoins forever. According to Stefan Thomas, during this period, he would just lie in bed, wide awake, just thinking about how to access these bitcoins. Everything that could go wrong has went wrong. And there is an option when it comes to hacking things, which is called brute force. Brute force is essentially when you randomly generate a string of text and attempt to log into something, and you do this over many, many attempts until you finally log into something. Of course, the iron key, you can only have 10 attempts, so brute forcing the password was not an option. Now, as time went on, the price of these bitcoins, of course, exponentially increased to the point where we're now in 2024 and they're worth over $400 million today. Stefan Thomas has tried all kinds of things: hypnosis, contacting crackers to come up with any kind of way to get into this device. And nothing has worked. Literally nothing has worked up to this point. But this is a unique curse that can't really be explained, and it's something that you and I cannot understand. The idea of having a winning lottery ticket, but you can't use it, is infuriating and stressful in a way that is hard to communicate into words. This dude has been through every stage of grief at this point, and now, according to Stefan Thomas, he is at a point where he has just accepted that this is gone for good. In interviews, he has said that whether these bitcoins are lost forever or someone manages to come up with a way to access the iron key, either way he's cool with it because he wants to move on with his life.
But hopefully one day, it'll either be recovered or it'll be finally lost and I can move on with my life. Honestly, at this point, after 10 years, I don't care which it is, just get it over with.
A cracking team named Unciphered has made attempts to actually access this very specific model of the iron key that was developed in 2011 that Stefan bought. According to Unciphered, they have a way to access the encryption of the iron key and claim that they could easily get access to Stefan's bitcoins using very complicated methods that I can't explain to any satisfactory detail. They have figured out a way, allegedly, to access this version of the iron key over 1,000 times. According to them, beyond any shadow of a doubt, they can retrieve his bitcoins for him.
This is not theoretical. We can do it. We've done it many times before. For Wired, for our partners, and others. We can do it again.
We would be happy to demonstrate it on as many samples in a row as it takes for you and everyone to feel confident before moving forward.
They have made numerous attempts to contact Stefan Thomas. However, what surprised Unciphered, he hasn't been willing to communicate at all. They've made various attempts to get in contact with him and come up with a proposal to get this sorted out, and yet he hasn't really responded. Now, the reason why Stefan Thomas may not want to respond to these guys is kind of interesting. Stefan Thomas has gone on record saying that when you are dealing with this kind of insane amount of money, everything takes a long time, and contracts need to be ironclad so that someone just doesn't nick the bitcoins. He has also been successful and made a decent amount of wealth by being a CEO of his own cryptocurrency company. So as strange as it sounds, maybe that $400 million worth of Bitcoin isn't the top of his priority list anymore. Unciphered are doing as best they can to try and plead with this guy to get access to his bitcoins, and you can imagine that there's some good incentive for that. If they were to get paid 10% of the bitcoins, that would be about $40 million. More than enough to have a fantastic life for you and your family for the rest of your time. Stefan Thomas has explained that this has been kind of a curse and a nuisance, as this iron key that he owns that has over $400 million worth of Bitcoin on it requires constant security and elaborate ways to keep this secure. He has bodyguards when he travels. If he moves this, it has to be this big, audacious project that requires a lot of security and money to do so. But of course, you can't just get rid of it, right? There's a 400 million on there. You're not going to just throw it into the lake. So he's kind of stuck. He has to keep up the security to not have this key get stolen. And as time goes on, the value of these bitcoins is just going to get higher and higher. As for why he doesn't take Unciphered's offer, it's hard to say, as he hasn't really came up with a comment on why he wouldn't go with these guys and try and sort something out. Perhaps he feels like they're not trustworthy, perhaps has simply moved on with his life. Or perhaps he's working with another team to decrypt this key, and he believes they are the golden ticket. Either way, Stefan Thomas's story is probably one of the most unique in the cryptocurrency space, and one of the most cruel and unusual punishments that we have seen in history.